The morning sun shone bright over the city of Valdoria. Birds sang in the trees that lined the wide streets leading to the royal palace. Today was not like other days. Today, important people from other countries would come to visit the king, ambassador. Heinrich Volker sat in the back of his black car. He wore his best suit and his most expensive watch. His shoes were so shiny they looked like mirrors. Volker was the new foreign minister from the Republic of Astoria. This was his first big meeting as a minister. He wanted everyone to know how important he was. Volker looked out the window as his car drove through the city. He saw normal people walking on the streets. Some were going to work, others were shopping. Children played in small parks. But Volker did not really see them. He was thinking about himself and his new job. These people should know who I am, Volker thought to himself. I am very important now. Everyone should show me respect. The car turned onto Palace Road. The street was different from the others. It was wider and cleaner. Beautiful flowers grew on both sides. Tall trees gave shade to people walking. The palace was still far away, but Volker could see its gold roof shining in the sunlight. Volker had read about this palace many times. It was very old and very famous. Kings and queens had lived there for hundreds of years. Many important meetings had happened inside its walls. Today, Volker would walk through those same doors. He felt proud and excited. As the car got closer to the palace, Volker could see other cars ahead of him. There were diplomats from many countries coming to this meeting. Some cars had flags on them. Others had special license plates. Volker made sure his own flag was flying properly on his car. He wanted everyone to see that he represented Astoria. The palace gates came into view. They were huge and made of black iron. Gold decorations covered every bar. 2 stone lions sat on each side of the gates. They looked strong and proud, like they were protecting the palace from bad people. Guards stood at the gates. These were not ordinary guards. They were the Royal Guard of Valdoria. Everyone knew about these guards. They were famous all over the world. They wore red uniforms with gold buttons and gold thread. Their hats were tall and black with white feathers. Each guard carried a sword at his side. Volker's car stopped at the gates. A guard walked over, checked their papers. This guard was young, but he stood very straight. His uniform was perfect. Not one wrinkle could be seen anywhere. His shoes were clean and bright. "Good morning, sir," the guard said in a polite voice. "May I see your invitation, please?" Volker's driver handed the papers through the window. The guard looked at them carefully. He read every word. Then he looked at Volker sitting in the back seat. "Welcome to Valdoria, Minister Volker," the guard said. "Please follow the road to the main entrance. Other guards will help you there." The gates opened slowly. They were so heavy that it took time for them to move. Volker's car drove through the gates and onto the palace grounds. The palace grounds were like a beautiful park. Green grass covered the ground like a soft carpet. Flowers of every color grew in perfect rows. Water fountains danced in the sunlight. Peacocks walked freely on the grass, showing off their beautiful tail feathers. But what caught Volker's attention most were the guards. There were guards everywhere. Some stood at attention near the building. Others walked in pairs around the grounds. All of them wore the same red uniform with gold decorations. All of them looked strong and proud. As Volker's car moved closer to the palace building, he could see more details. The building was made of white stone that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Tall windows reflected the blue sky. Flags from many countries hung from poles along the front of the building. The car stopped at the main entrance. This entrance had wide stone steps leading up to huge wooden doors. The doors were carved with pictures of lions, eagles, and other royal symbols. Gold paint filled in all the carved lines, making them shine. More guards stood at the entrance. These guards were different from the ones at the gate. They stood perfectly still, like statues. Their eyes looked straight ahead. They did not move. Even when cars stopped nearby or when people walked past them, one guard stood out from the others. He was older than most of the guards around him. His uniform had more gold decorations than the others. Small colorful ribbons were pinned to his chest. These ribbons meant he had done brave things or good work for his country. This guard's name was Captain Marcus Sterling. He had worked as a guard for 15 years. He had started as a young man, just like the guard at the gate. But over the years, he had shown that he was special. He was brave when danger came. He was kind to people who needed help. He was honest even when it was hard to be honest. Captain Sterling had gray hair around his ears. His face had lines that showed he had lived through many things. His eyes were blue and clear. When he looked at someone, they felt like he could see right into their heart. Other guards respected Captain Sterling very much. Young guards tried to be like him. They watched how he stood, how he walked, and how he talked to people. They wanted to learn from him because they knew he was a good man. But Captain Sterling was not just a guard. Before he worked at the palace, he had been a soldier. He had fought in wars to protect his country. He had seen terrible things and beautiful things. He had helped people who were hurt and scared. These experiences had made him wise and strong. The colorful ribbons on his chest told stories. One ribbon was for saving a child from a burning building. Another was for helping families escape from a flood. A third was for bringing food to people during a terrible winter when many were hungry. Captain Sterling never talked about these things unless someone asked him. He did not think he was better than other people because of what he had done. He believed that helping others was just the right thing to do. It was not something special. It was just being human. As Volker got out of his car, he noticed all the guards. He saw their perfect uniforms and their proud faces, but he did not think about their stories or their feelings. He only thought about himself and how important he was. Volker straightened his tie and checked his hair in the car's mirror. He wanted to look perfect for his big day. Other diplomats were getting out of their cars too. Some he knew and some were strangers. They all looked important in their expensive clothes and serious faces. The morning air was fresh and cool. A light breeze moved the flags and made them dance. Birds still sang in the trees around the palace. Everything seemed peaceful and beautiful, but something was about to happen that would change this peaceful morning. Something that would make everyone remember this day for a very long time. Something that would show the difference between real respect and fake respect. Captain Sterling stood at his post, ready to do his duty. He did not know that in a few minutes he would have to make a choice that would test everything he believed in, a choice that would show everyone what kind of man he really was. Volker walked up the stone steps toward the palace entrance. His shoes made clicking sounds on the hard stone. He held his head high and his back straight. He wanted everyone to see that he was important. Other diplomats walked near him. Some were talking quietly to each other. Others, like Volker, walked alone. All of them were heading to the same place, the big wooden doors of the palace. Palace workers stood near the entrance. They were there to help the visiting diplomats. Some carried papers. Others held small flags. A few had cameras to take pictures of this important day. Captain Sterling and the other guards stood perfectly still. Their job was to look impressive and to protect the palace. They had done this job many times before. Usually diplomats would walk past them without stopping. The diplomats would go inside for their meetings. The guards would stay outside and watch, but today was different. Today, Volker had other ideas. As Volker got closer to the entrance, he looked at all the guards. He saw their red uniforms and gold decorations. He saw their swords and their proud faces, but instead of feeling respect for them, Volker felt something else. He felt like they should respect him. I am a foreign minister now, Volker thought to himself. These guards should show me respect. They should salute me like I am their boss. Volker had always liked it when people showed him respect. Even before he became a minister, he had wanted people to treat him like he was special. Now that he had an important job, he thought everyone should bow to him or salute him. When Volker was almost at the top of the steps, he stopped walking. He stopped right in front of Captain Sterling. Other diplomats had to walk around him. Some looked surprised. They wondered why he had stopped. Captain Sterling did not move. His eyes looked straight ahead, just like always. His hands stayed at his sides, his feet stayed in the same position. This was how guards were supposed to stand when they were on duty. Volker looked up at Captain Sterling. The captain was taller than Volker and looked very strong. His uniform was perfect. His face was serious but not mean. He looked like a man who took his job seriously, but Volker did not see any of these good things about Captain Sterling. All Volker saw was someone who was not paying attention to him, someone who was not showing him respect. "Excuse me," Volker said in a loud voice. "Guard!" Captain Sterling's eyes moved down to look at Volker. This was the only part of his body that moved. The rest of him stayed perfectly still. "Yes, sir?" Captain Sterling said in a polite voice. Volker smiled, but it was not a nice smile. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they think they are about to win something. "I am Foreign Minister Heinrich Volker from the Republic of Astoria," Volker said, speaking loudly so everyone nearby could hear him. "I demand that you salute me right now." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. People who were walking nearby stopped to listen. Other guards heard what Volker said, but they could not turn their heads to look. They had to keep standing at attention. Captain Sterling did not move. He looked down at Volker with calm blue eyes. He did not look angry or scared. He just looked at Volker like he was trying to understand something. "Sir," Captain Sterling said in the same polite voice, "I am honored to meet you. Welcome to our country." But Captain Sterling did not salute. He did not move his hand to his forehead. He did not bow. He just stood there like before. Volker's face started to turn red. He had expected the guard to salute him immediately. He had expected the guard to say, "Yes, sir," and do what he was told. But that was not happening. "Did you hear what I said?" Volker asked, his voice getting louder. "I am a foreign minister. You will salute me right now." More people stopped to watch. Diplomats from other countries looked surprised. Palace workers put down what they were doing. Even some guards who were far away could hear Volker's loud voice. Captain Sterling still did not move. His face stayed calm and serious. He did not look like he was going to change his mind. "I heard you, sir," Captain Sterling said, "and I welcome you to our palace." But still, no salute came. Volker could not believe what was happening. In his own country, when he told people to do something, they did it. Soldiers saluted him. Workers bowed to him. Everyone showed him respect because of his important job. "This is unacceptable," Volker shouted. His face was now very red. His hands were shaking a little bit. "I represent an entire country. You must show me the respect I deserve." People in the crowd started to whisper to each other. Some looked embarrassed for Volker. Others looked curious about what would happen next. A few looked angry that Volker was being so rude to the guard. One diplomat from a nearby country stepped closer. This diplomat was an older woman who had been working in diplomacy for many years. She had seen many things in her career, but she had never seen anything like this. "Minister Volker," she said quietly, "perhaps we should go inside for the meeting." But Volker did not listen to her. He was too angry and too embarrassed to listen to anyone. All he could think about was making this guard salute him. "No," Volker said, turning to face the crowd that had gathered. "Everyone needs to see this. This guard is being disrespectful to a foreign minister. This is how Valdoria treats visiting diplomats." Captain Sterling watched all of this happen. He saw how angry Volker was getting. He saw how embarrassed the other diplomats looked. He saw how confused the palace workers were. But he did not change his mind about saluting Captain Sterling had been a guard for 15 years. In all that time, he had met many important people. Kings and queens had walked past him. Presidents and prime ministers had shaken his hand. But he had never saluted any of them just because they asked him to. Captain Sterling believed that salute was something special. It was not just a way to say hello. It was a way to show deep respect for someone who had earned it. In his mind, a salute should only be given to people who had done brave or good things for others. "I will give you one more chance," Volker said, pointing his finger at Captain Sterling. "Salute me now, or I will report this to your superiors. I will make sure you lose your job." The crowd got very quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what Captain Sterling would do. Would he salute Volker to keep his job? Would he give in to avoid trouble? Other guards were listening too, even though they could not turn their heads to look. They respected Captain Sterling very much. They wanted to know what he would do. They knew that whatever happened next would be very important. Captain Sterling looked down at Volker. Then he looked at the crowd of people watching. He saw diplomats, palace workers, and other guards. All of them were waiting for his answer. Captain Sterling thought about his 15 years as a guard. He thought about all the important people he had met. He thought about what it meant to be a good guard and a good person. He thought about respect and what it really meant. Then Captain Sterling made his choice. Instead of saluting, he took one small step forward. This was the first time he had moved since Volker started talking to him. The crowd held its breath. Everyone knew that something very important was about to happen, something that would change everything, something that would be remembered for a very long time. Captain Sterling opened his mouth to speak. His voice was calm and strong. What he said next would shock everyone, including Volker. It would start a chain of events that would reach far beyond the palace gates. It would teach everyone a lesson about real respect versus fake respect. The morning sun continued to shine down on the palace grounds. The birds continued to sing in the trees. But the peaceful morning was about to become something very different. Something that would make this day unforgettable for everyone who was there. Captain Sterling stood tall and looked directly at Volker. His blue eyes were calm but strong. The crowd around them was so quiet that everyone could hear the birds singing in the nearby trees. "Sir," Captain Sterling said in a clear voice that everyone could hear, "I understand that you are an important person. I understand that you represent your country. But I cannot salute you." Volker's mouth opened wide. He could not believe what he was hearing. No one had ever said no to him like this before. His face turned from red to purple. "What did you just say to me?" Volker asked. His voice was shaking with anger. Captain Sterling did not look away. He did not back down. He stood even straighter than before. "I said I cannot salute you, sir," Captain Sterling repeated. "And I will tell you why." The crowd of people moved closer. They wanted to hear every word. Diplomats who had been walking toward the palace doors stopped and turned around. Palace workers put down their papers and cameras. Even the guards who were supposed to look straight ahead were listening carefully. "I salute only 3 things in this world," Captain Sterling said. His voice was not loud, but it was strong and clear. "I salute my king and queen, who have earned my loyalty through years of good leadership. I salute my country's flag, which represents all the good people who live here. And I salute people who have earned honor through service to others." Volker's hands were shaking now. He was so angry he could barely speak. "I am a person of honor," Volker shouted. "I am a foreign minister. My position gives me honor." Captain Sterling shook his head slowly. "No, sir," he said. "A job title does not give honor. Honor comes from what a person does, not from what they are called." An older diplomat in the crowd nodded his head. He had been working in diplomacy for 30 years. He had met many people who thought their job titles made them special. He had also met people who were truly honorable. He knew the difference. "You cannot speak to me like this," Volker yelled. "I will have you arrested. I will have you thrown in jail." But Captain Sterling was not afraid. He had faced much scarier things than an angry diplomat. He had been a soldier before he became a guard. He had seen real danger and real evil. One angry man did not scare him. "Sir," Captain Sterling said, "you can try to have me arrested. But I have done nothing wrong. I have been polite to you. I have welcomed you to our country. But I will not give you a salute that you have not earned." A young diplomat from another country stepped forward. She was new to her job and had never seen anything like this before. "What do you mean by earned?" she asked Captain Sterling. Captain Sterling looked at her with kind eyes. He could see that she was asking a real question, not trying to cause trouble. "A true leader," Captain Sterling sighed, "inspires respect. They do not demand it. A true leader helps others and puts the needs of their people before their own needs. A true leader shows honor through their actions, not through their words. Volker was breathing heavily now. His expensive suit was wrinkled from his angry movements. His perfect hair was starting to look messy. "This is ridiculous," Volker said. "In my country, everyone shows me respect. Soldiers salute me. Workers bow to me. I am important." "And that," Captain Sterling said quietly, "is exactly the problem." The crowd was completely silent now. Even the birds seemed to have stopped singing. Everyone was hanging on every word. "When people salute you just because of your job," Captain Sterling continued, "it means nothing. It is empty. It is fake. Real respect comes from the heart. Real respect must be earned through good deeds and kind actions." An old man in the crowd started to clap his hands slowly. He was not a diplomat or a palace worker. He was just a regular citizen who had come to watch the important visitors arrive. But he understood what Captain Sterling was saying. Other people in the crowd started to clap too. Not everyone, but many of them. They clapped quietly, respectfully. They were not trying to embarrass Volker. They were showing that they agreed with Captain Sterling. Volker looked around at the people clapping. He could not understand why they were supporting the guard instead of him. He was the important one. He was the one with the big job and the fancy title. "Stop that clapping," Volker ordered the crowd. "This guard is being disrespectful to a foreign minister." But the clapping did not stop. In fact, more people joined in. They clapped for Captain Sterling's brave words. They clapped for his honest answer. They clapped because he had stood up for what he believed was right. Captain Sterling raised his hand, and the clapping stopped immediately. He did not want this to become about him. He wanted it to be about something bigger and more important. "Sir," Captain Sterling said to Volker, "I do not mean to embarrass you. I do not mean to cause trouble between our countries. But I cannot pretend to respect someone I do not know. I cannot give a salute to someone just because they demand it." Volker was so angry now that he could barely think straight. All his life, people had done what he told them to do. All his life, people had treated him like he was special. But this guard was treating him like he was just a regular person. "You will regret this," Volker said through clenched teeth. "I will make sure everyone knows how badly I was treated here. I will tell my government. I will tell other governments. This will cause problems between our countries." Captain Sterling looked sad when he heard this. He did not want to cause problems between countries. He loved his country and did not want it to have trouble with other countries. But he also could not go against everything he believed. "I'm sorry you feel that way, sir," Captain Sterling said. "But I must do what I think is right. I cannot salute someone I do not respect. And I cannot respect someone who demands respect without earning it." A woman diplomat from a nearby country stepped forward. She was very smart and had been watching everything carefully. "Captain," she said to Captain Sterling, "may I ask you something?" "Of course, ma'am," Captain Sterling replied politely. "You said you salute people who have earned honor through service to others. Can you give us an example of such a person?" Captain Sterling thought for a moment. He looked at the crowd of people around him. He looked at the other guards standing at their posts. He looked up at the blue sky and the beautiful palace behind him. "Last year," Captain Sterling said, "a young teacher from the city came to visit the palace with her school children. During the visit, one of the children fell into the fountain and could not swim. The teacher jumped into the water immediately. Even though she was wearing her best dress, she saved that child's life without thinking about herself." The crowd listened carefully to this story. "When that teacher walked past me later," Captain Sterling continued, "I saluted her. Not because she asked me to, not because she had an important job, but because she had shown real honor through her actions. She had put someone else's safety before her own comfort." Many people in the crowd nodded their heads. They understood. Now, what Captain Sterling meant by earning respect. Volker, however, did not understand. He was still thinking only about himself and his hurt feelings. "That is just one person," Volker said. "I represent millions of people. I make important decisions that affect whole countries." "And that," Captain Sterling said, should make you want to earn respect even more. People who have power over others should be the most honorable of all. They should be examples for everyone else to follow. The morning sun was getting higher in the sky. Other diplomats were starting to worry about being late for their meeting, but no one wanted to leave. Everyone wanted to see how this would end. Captain Sterling could see that people were getting restless. He knew he had said what he needed to say, but he was not finished yet. He had one more thing to show Volker and everyone else. Something that would explain everything. Something that would make his position perfectly clear. Captain Sterling reached into his uniform jacket. His hand went to a small pocket near his heart. Inside that pocket was something very special, something that told a story, something that would change everything. Captain Sterling's hand moved slowly to the small pocket over his heart. Everyone watched as he carefully pulled out something small. It was a photograph, old and worn from being handled many times. The edges were soft and the colors had faded a little, but the picture was still clear. "This," Captain Sterling said, holding up the photograph so everyone could see it, "is why I cannot salute you, Minister Volker." The crowd pressed closer, trying to see the picture. Volker squinted his eyes, not understanding what an old photograph could possibly have to do with him. "What is that supposed to mean?" Volker asked angrily. "What does some old picture have to do with anything?" Captain Sterling looked down at the photograph in his hands. His eyes grew soft and distant, like he was remembering something from long ago. 3 years ago, Captain Sterling began, I was not just a palace guard. I was also a soldier in our country's rescue unit. We got special training to help people in dangerous situations. He paused and looked around at the crowd. Everyone was listening carefully now. 3 years ago, there was terrible fighting near the border between our countries. War had broken out in that region. Many innocent people were caught in the middle. They had no way to escape. They had no food, no water, no safe place to go. Volker's face changed a little. He remembered hearing about that conflict. It had been in all the newspapers. But he tried not to show that he was interested in Captain Sterling's story. Our government asked for volunteers to go on a rescue mission, Captain Sterling continued. It was very dangerous. No one knew if we would come back alive, but people needed help, so I volunteered. Captain Sterling held up the photograph higher so more people could see it. This picture was taken on the last day of that mission. I'm standing here in the middle, wearing my soldier uniform instead of my guard uniform. Around me are some of the people we rescued from the fighting. The crowd could now see the picture more clearly. It showed a younger version of Captain Sterling in a dusty military uniform. He was standing in front of a group of people who looked tired and scared but grateful. There were men, women, and children of all ages. Some were holding small bags with their few belongings. Others were holding each other. We spent 2 weeks in that dangerous area, Captain Sterling said. We moved carefully from village to village, looking for people who needed help. We found families hiding in basements. We found children who had lost their parents. We found old people who could not walk very far. A young woman in the crowd wiped tears from her eyes. She could imagine how scared those people must have been. It was not easy, Captain Sterling continued. We had to avoid the fighting. We had to find food and water for everyone. We had to carry people who were too sick or too hurt to walk. Some of our own soldiers got hurt trying to help others. Volker was starting to look uncomfortable. He was beginning to understand that this story might have something to do with him. But we did not give up, Captain Sterling said. We kept working day and night. We kept looking for more people who needed help. By the end of 2 weeks, we had rescued 43 people, 43 human beings who would have died if we had not gone to help them. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the birds seemed to be listening to Captain Sterling's story. Among those 43 people, Captain Sterling said, looking directly at Volker, were 12 children. Beautiful, innocent children who had done nothing wrong. They were just unlucky enough to be born in a place where adults were fighting. Captain, Sterling's voice got stronger as he continued. And among those 43 people we rescued, he said, still looking at Volker. We're 5 entire families from your country, Minister Volker. 5 families from the Republic of Astoria. Volker's face went completely white. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He stared at Captain Sterling like he had seen a ghost. 5 families, Captain Sterling repeated. 15 people total. Men, women, and children who were citizens of your country. People who should have been protected by your government. People who your government had abandoned. The crowd started to whisper among themselves. Some of the diplomats looked shocked. Others looked embarrassed for Volker. Everyone was starting to understand what had really happened. An older diplomat who had been quiet until now stepped forward. He was from a country that neighbored both Valdoria and Astoria. He had been working in the region for many years and knew about the conflict Captain Sterling was describing. I remember that rescue mission, the older diplomat said. It was in all the international news. The Valdorian rescue team saved dozens of people, but I also remember... He paused and looked at Volker. I remember that the Astorian government refused to send help. They said it was too dangerous. Volker tried to speak, but his voice came out as just a whisper. That was not my decision, Volker said weakly. I was not the foreign minister then. I had no power to make that choice. That is true, Captain Sterling said. You were not the foreign minister then, but the government you now represent. The government that gave you your important job. That government left its own people to die. Captain Sterling pointed to different people in the photograph. This man here, he said, pointing to an older man in the picture. His name is Robert Chun. He was a teacher from your country who was visiting the region with students on an educational trip. When the fighting started, your government told him he was on his own. Captain Sterling pointed to another person in the photograph. This woman here is Maria Santos. She was a nurse from your country who had come to help in a medical clinic. When she asked your government for help getting home safely, they told her they could not help her. Captain Sterling's voice was getting emotional now, but he controlled himself and kept speaking. And these children here, he said, pointing to a group of young faces in the photograph, they are the sons and daughters of Astorian diplomats who were working in the region. When their parents were killed in the fighting, your government said, they could not risk sending soldiers to save children. The crowd was shocked. Several people gasped out loud. One woman diplomat covered her mouth with her hand. We risked our lives, Captain Sterling said, to save people that your own government would not save. We went into danger to bring home children that your own country had given up on. Captain Sterling put the photograph back in his pocket, close to his heart. So you see, Minister Volker, Captain Sterling said, I cannot salute you. I cannot salute someone who represents a government that abandons its own people. I cannot show respect to someone whose country left children to die while we risked everything to save them. Volker was shaking now, not from anger this time, but from shock and embarrassment. He had not known about these details. He had not known that Captain Sterling was one of the heroes who had saved his own countrymen. I did not know... Volker started to say, Of course you did not know, Captain Sterling said, because your government did not want people to. No, they did not want people to know that they had failed their own citizens. They did not want people to know that soldiers from another country had to risk their lives to save Astorian people. The crowd was buzzing with conversation now. Diplomats were talking quietly to each other in shocked voices. Palace workers were shaking their heads in disbelief. Everyone was trying to understand what they had just learned. Those 15 people from your country, Captain Sterling said, they are alive today because Valdorian soldiers risked their lives. They are with their families today because we cared more about human life than about politics or safety. Captain Sterling stood even taller and looked directly into Volker's eyes. That, Minister Volker, is why I cannot salute you. My salute is reserved for people who serve others, not for people who abandon others. My respect is given to those who risk everything to help, not to those who represent governments that turn their backs on their own people. The revelation was complete. Everyone now understood why Captain Sterling had refused to salute. Everyone now understood what real honor meant. And everyone now understood the difference between someone who truly deserved respect and someone who just demanded it because of their job title. The morning sun continued to shine down on the palace grounds. But everything had changed. Nothing would ever be the same after this moment. The silence that followed Captain Sterling's revelation was so complete that everyone could hear the fountain water splashing in the distance. No one moved. No one spoke. Everyone was trying to understand what they had just learned. Volker stood frozen like a statue. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. He had come to the palace feeling proud and important. Now he felt small and ashamed. The photograph that Captain Sterling had shown changed everything. It proved that this guard was a real hero. While Volker was just a man with a fancy job title, the first person to break the silence was the older diplomat who had recognized the rescue mission story. He stepped forward and looked directly at Captain Sterling. "Captain," he said in a respectful voice, "I want to thank you. 3 years ago, my country also had citizens trapped in that conflict zone. Your rescue mission saved 2 of our people. As well, you risked your life for strangers from foreign countries. That is the definition of true honor." The older diplomat did something that surprised everyone. He stood up straight, brought his hand to his forehead, and gave Captain Sterling a perfect military salute. "You have earned my respect, sir," the older diplomat said. One by one, other diplomats began to step forward. A woman from a northern country saluted Captain Sterling. A young man from an island nation saluted him. Even diplomats whose countries had no people in that rescue mission saluted him because they understood that what he had done was heroic. Soon, almost every diplomat in the crowd was saluting Captain Sterling. Palace workers were clapping their hands. Citizens who had come to watch were cheering softly. Even some of the other guards, who were supposed to stay perfectly still, nodded their heads slightly in respect, but Volker did not salute. He could not move. He was too shocked and too embarrassed. Captain Sterling looked uncomfortable with all the attention. He had not told his story to get praise. He had told it to explain why he could not salute someone who had not earned respect. "Please," Captain Sterling said, raising his hands to quiet the crowd, "I do not need your salutes. I was just doing my job. Any good soldier would have done the same thing." But the crowd knew better. They knew that not everyone would have volunteered for such a dangerous mission. They knew that Captain Sterling was special. A young reporter who had been taking pictures of the diplomatic visit came running over. She had heard about the commotion and wanted to know what was happening. When other people told her the story, her eyes grew wide with excitement. "This is incredible," she said to her photographer. "This is the story of the year. A foreign minister demands respect from a war hero and gets taught a lesson about real honor instead." The photographer started taking pictures of Captain Sterling and the crowd of diplomats saluting him. The reporter started writing notes as fast as she could. Volker finally found his voice. "Stop," he said weakly. "Please stop taking pictures. This is not what it looks like." But it was too late. The reporter had already sent a message to her news station. Within minutes, other reporters started arriving at the palace. Word was spreading quickly about what had happened. The young woman diplomat who had asked Captain Sterling about earning respect earlier stepped closer to Volker. "Minister Volker," she said quietly, "perhaps you should go inside now. The meeting is about to start." Volker looked around at all the people staring at him. Some looked angry. Others looked disappointed. A few looked sorry for him. But no one looked like they respected him anymore. "This is not fair," Volker said, but his voice was so quiet that only a few people could hear him. "I did not know about those details. I was not responsible for what happened 3 years ago." Captain Sterling heard him and stepped closer. "You." "All right, sir," Captain Sterling said. "You were not responsible for what happened 3 years ago. But you are responsible for what happened here today." Volker looked confused. "What do you mean?" he asked. "You came here demanding respect that you had not earned," Captain Sterling explained. "You thought your job title made you special. You thought people should salute you just because you told them to. But respect does not work that way. Captain Sterling's voice was not angry. It was patient, like a teacher explaining something to a student. Real respect comes from what you do, not from what you are called, Captain Sterling continued. If you want people to respect you, you must do things that are worthy of respect. You must help others. You must be brave when it matters. You must put other people's needs before your own. More reporters were arriving now. News vans were pulling up to the palace gates. Camera crews were setting up their equipment. This story was becoming bigger than anyone had expected. The palace's head of protocol, a distinguished older man who had worked at the palace for 20 years, came hurrying out of the building. He had heard about the commotion and came to see what was happening. When someone explained the situation to him, he looked very serious. "Minister Volker," the protocol officer said, "perhaps it would be best if you entered the palace now through a side entrance. The main meeting will begin soon, and this situation has attracted too much attention." Volker nodded weakly. He wanted to get away from all the cameras and staring people. He wanted to hide somewhere until this embarrassment was over, but as Volker started to walk toward a side door, Captain Sterling called out to him. "Minister Volker," Captain Sterling said. Volker stopped and turned around reluctantly. "Sir," Captain Sterling said, "I hope you understand that I meant no disrespect to you personally. I hope you also understand that respect must be earned, not demanded, and I hope that someday you will do something worthy of the salute you wanted today." These words hit Volker harder than any angry shout could have. Captain Sterling was not being mean or cruel. He was being honest and hopeful. He was giving Volker a chance to become better. Volker's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, he saw himself clearly. He saw that he had become someone who cared more about being treated as important than about actually being important. He saw that he had confused having power with deserving power. "Thank you," Volker whispered to Captain Sterling. "Thank you for showing me what real honor looks like." Then Volker walked quickly toward the side entrance, avoiding the cameras and reporters. By that evening, the story was on news stations all over the world. "Foreign Minister demands salute from war hero" was the headline in newspapers in dozens of countries. Social media was full of videos and photos from the scene. Most of the news coverage praised Captain Sterling for his principled stand. People called him a hero not just for his rescue mission 3 years earlier, but for his courage in standing up for his beliefs. That morning, the coverage of Volker was less kind. Many news stories talked about his arrogant behavior and his government's failure to help its own citizens during the conflict. Opinion writers used the incident as an example of how some politicians care more about their image than about serving their people. Within a week, the pressure on Volker became too much. His own government, embarrassed by the international attention, asked him to resign from his position as foreign minister. They said they needed someone who could restore their country's reputation on the world stage. Volker agreed to resign. In his resignation letter, he wrote, "I have learned that leadership is not about demanding respect, but about earning it through service to others. I hope to spend the coming years learning how to be worthy of the respect I once demanded." Captain Sterling, meanwhile, received letters and emails from people all over the world thanking him for his courage. The King of Valdoria gave him a special medal for bringing honor to their country. Other countries offered him jobs and awards, but Captain Sterling turned down most of these offers. He was happy being a palace guard. He was happy serving his country in a simple, honest way. The only offer he accepted was from a school that asked him to come speak to students about courage and honor. Captain Sterling agreed because he thought it was important for young people to understand the difference between real leadership and fake leadership. When Captain Sterling spoke to the students, he always ended his talk the same way. "Remember," he would say, "it does not matter what job you have or what title people call you. What matters is how you treat other people. What matters is whether you help others when they need help. What matters is whether you stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. Respect is not something you can demand from others. Respect is something you must earn through your actions. And the best way to earn respect is to give respect to others, especially to those who cannot give you anything in return." The students always listened carefully to these words. Many of them remembered Captain Sterling's advice for the rest of their lives. They grew up to be the kind of leaders who served others instead of serving themselves. Years later, people still talked about the morning when a foreign minister demanded a salute and learned the difference between real honor and fake honor. They remembered it as the day when one brave guard showed the world what true respect really means, and Captain Sterling continued to stand guard at the palace, knowing that he had done the right thing. He had shown that respect cannot be commanded, or bought or demanded. He had shown that respect must be earned through service, courage, and honor.